The regular town council meeting of Town of Cave Creek, Arizona is called to order. May I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Augerton, Councilmember Bunch, Councilmember Alcama, Councilmember McGuire,
Present.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Here.
Vice Mayor Royer,
Here.
Mayor Morris.
Present.
All are present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. And the Pledge of Allegiance. Evelyn, would you lead us in the pledge tonight? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Public announcements. I guess we all smelled smoke about 3 o'clock this afternoon. It was another exciting day on the fire front. It sounds like they may have it under control to some extent. They said if it holds tonight, they're feeling good about it. They didn't fly some of the airplanes today, so I'm curious to find out what caused it.
I have an announcement.
Okay, go ahead, Dustin.
On Tuesday, May 28th, I'm sponsoring, excuse me, Bruce Arlen and I are sponsoring Amanda Moniz for a presentation at the Desert Foothills Library at 4:30 p.m. Amanda is a board member of the Central Arizona Project. She'll be discussing 3 items: federal-state interaction, structural issues with both dams, and impacts of future water cuts on Cave Creek, if anyone's interested. It'll be from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, May 28th.
Other announcements? Seeing none, we'll move to call to the public.
Bobby, it's your turn.
See me over the podium. Ouch. Just would like to, especially to my neighbors. I and a neighbor of mine, Tom Secor, we live over at Rancho Manana. Many of you, I just told you a few minutes ago, we started a Team Clean, Cave Creek Team Clean thing that we're hoping to build up, and probably quarterly. We thought quarterly, maybe, quarterly, to get some volunteers in the area, neighbors. I'm talking to a few of the restaurants to see if they'll sponsor it a bit. Hal Marin has been great. He got us the bags and the vests and the picker-uppers or gophers, whatever you want to call them. And we did Carefree Highway Earth Day from about our Abrazo Starbucks down to Home Depot. And we had 12, 14 bags of trash. Paul was with us. And we're going to do it again this Saturday, if you all would put the word out. We meet here at 9 a.m. Love to have as many people as we can. We're going to pick up, yesterday I walked Cave Creek about a quarter of a mile and picked up 2 huge bags of trash. It's just unbelievable what people are doing to our town. So we're hoping to build this up, get as many people involved. I walk Spur Cross on Sundays up to feed some Clydesdales on Yucca and Spur Cross, and I pick up 3 to 4 bags of trash on that walk. And I've come to the city council today to ask if there's a chance we can get a couple of no litter signs in this town posted. It might help a little bit. I think we need as much help as we can. And normally you see no littering or a $300 fine or $500 fine. I don't know what the procedure is here, but I just want to put that on the table and see if we can make that happen. It would be much appreciated. In the meantime, we shall soldier on, as Churchill says. Thank you for your time. Did I use my 3 minutes? I did.
Thank you for your civic mindedness. Thank you for your civic mindedness and cleanliness, both.
No additional speakers, Mayor.
Okay, town manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, and for the public, I just wanted to remind everybody that this Wednesday, we have our very first Morningstar Task Force meeting. It's going to be from 3 to 5. It will be in this room here. And this is the very first meeting that will establish the future meeting dates, and also a chair and vice chair will be selected. And then we will have all the meetings identified, hopefully at that meeting, and then we can then start posting and having the agendas and the meeting minutes and everything officially on our website, so the public can monitor these meetings. Also, these meetings will be open to the public, so the public will always be invited. We'll also have a call the public at the very end of the meeting, so the public can still have an opportunity to chime in and participate. Also, I wanted to let the council know that our very own Jim Ford, our community risk reduction director, was just inducted into the Hall of Flame. This is one of the highest honors that anybody in the fire service can receive, and it's always wonderful to be recognized when you're still living, which he is, I think. So let's hear it for him.
Grady?
Speech.
Grady,
Yes.
could we live stream the
I-
Wednesday?
We were asked, and we were trying to keep the meetings informal, and by live streaming, we'd have to have all the commissioners sitting up at the dais. And that wasn't something we were trying to do. So we're going to see if there's another way we can do this, that people can monitor either through phones or some other way. So
Yeah, phone would be fine.
yeah, I had that request that I just saw late this afternoon. So we're going to see what we can do. I think streaming would change the character of the meetings rather than being informal. It would totally formalize the meetings to being like a board or commission meeting. And I don't think that's the tenor that we're trying to set. But we're going to see what we can do. If we were to set up a board style setup for the meetings, I don't think the camera angles or the audio would work optimally for
Fair enough. I
for
mean,
Zoom.
I know there are going to be some people who can't make the meeting that they'd like to listen in.
Right. So we'll see what we can do to set up some sort of a phone bank or a multi-line phone system for that. So thank you for the asking the question. Finally, Mayor, I came in late, so if I'm repeating myself, I do apologize. But as most people are aware, over the weekend on Saturday, there was the Wildcat Fire. Did you talk a little bit about that already?
Yeah, well, go ahead though.
So I just wanted to let you know, initially it started off as 100 acres, then it grew to 500, and now it's roughly 13,000 acres in the Bartlett Lake recreation area. It's in the Tonto National Forest. There's no imminent danger to our own residents. We did open up our rodeo grounds for people that might be out of the area that needed to bring their horses or livestock. My understanding is we had very few takers of that, and we eventually closed that around lunchtime today. So that's all I have to report, Mayor.
Thank you. On the, we had a presentation scheduled tonight by RJ Carden of the Maricopa County Parks. That has been postponed. Is there a date yet, or is that going to?
We have a tentative date, I believe, was it the 17th? Yeah, we're waiting for him to confirm the 17th of June.
Very good. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have two items proposed to the consent agenda tonight. Council discussion, possible action to accept a 10-foot wide deed of gift for utility easement on assessor's parcel 216-13-014A located at 7045 East Arroyo Road, Cave Creek, Arizona, 85331. And the second one is council discussion, possible approval of resolution number R 2024-05, a resolution of the mayor and council of the town of Cave Creek, Arizona, appointing the town of Cave Creek town manager Grady E. Miller as chief financial officer of the town for the purpose of submitting the annual expenditure limitation report to the Arizona Auditor General's office for the fiscal year 2025. Is there a motion to approve that consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion's passes 7-0. Next is a council discussion, possible adoption of the town of Cave Creek fiscal year 2024-2025 tentative budget in the amount of $57,393,797. Adoption of the tentative budget caps the total expenditures of the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget presented by the town manager and finance director.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, Council, and for the public who are here tonight, we're pleased to present the tentative budget to the Mayor and Council. The last time you saw this was during a budget workshop on May 1st and May 2nd. And the staff was taking copious notes during those workshops. And so what you're going to see when we first get into the presentation are some of the changes and additions and edits as requested by the council. And then we'll get into the rest of the budget. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mitzi, who will then go over the presentation in front of you. And Mitzi, do you want to kind of explain the PowerPoints that are in front of them and how they correspond with the page numbers so they can follow if they wish to?
Yes, I will. Good evening, Mayor and Council. What was left in front of you tonight was the 11 by 17 pages that are out of the tentative budget book. They're the same pages that are in the budget book. They're just printed up in a bigger size for easier viewing. But they correlate to the specific page numbers in the tentative budget book. And then also you'll see the page number, I think, to the tentative budget book on the left, and on the right side is the council agenda packet page number that's referenced there. And you'll also see those page numbers referenced in the PowerPoint presentation was also left for you as a handout as to what we'll be viewing on the PowerPoint presentation on the screens here tonight. Any questions on that so far? No. Okay. So we're going to, as Grady mentioned, start with going through the budget changes that we had from our May 1st and May 2nd council meetings for our budget workshops. And the first change that we had was we corrected the rodeo ground fee revenue with an increase of $20,000 for fiscal year 24 estimated, and $21,879 for the fiscal year 25 proposed budget. Those changes are reflected on page 47 of your budget book and page 68 of 362 on your agenda packet. The next general fund change that we had was in the transfers in from Spurcross. That resulted in an increase of $65,900 for a total transfer in to the general fund of the $929,550, which was due to the correction of the half-cent sales tax in the Spurcross revenues that we had referenced when we had met during the budget workshop meetings. That was a formula error that was in there, and we had corrected it, but it resulted in that change there in the transfers in. We also, due to the same correction of the half-cent sales tax in the wastewater revenues, it resulted in a decrease in the transfers out to from the general fund to the utility funds. And those were represented a decrease of $131,800 to the total transfers out of $2,636,298. Those changes are both referenced on page 48 of the budget book and page 69 of 362 of the agenda packet. Our next general fund change that we made, we added as a note indicating what the $27,000 in contracts and services was. It was for consulting services and the town manager budget for the council retreat, strategic plan, et cetera. That note can be shown on page 50 of the budget book and page 71 of 362 of the agenda packet. Also on that same page, in the town manager budget, we reduced the life and medical expense to $25,000, or we reduced it down $25,916 to coincide with the employment agreement. Then we also made a general fund change to the law enforcement budget. We had a reduction of $136,474 in the PSPRS retirement line. That's shown on page 69 of the budget book and page 90 of 362 of the agenda packet. Also on that same page, you will see We also had an increase in the law enforcement fiscal year 25 proposed budget of 58,000. That 58,000 is an increase for $20,000 in non-professional services for increased traffic enforcement, 10,000 in supplies for 2 new traffic flock devices, and 28,000 in subscriptions for the new flock safety software, and increases in the Maricopa County wireless police and police and emergency management radio usage fees, the Axum evidence management system, and the Code Red emergency alert and notification system charges. We also created a new department that's entitled General Government to include those expenditures that were related to town-wide items in the budget. This new department can be seen on page 74 of the budget book and page 95 of 362 of the agenda packet. And
Excuse
what?
me, Mitzi, if I
Yes.
may. So I honestly believe that this creates greater transparency. A lot of these items you're going to see were kind of buried in different areas of the budget, and this just brings it all to the front and center. So again, it's not that these items were inappropriate or inappropriately placed in different departments, but this particular department, which we call General Government Department, it basically are those areas that doesn't really fit in any one particular department. And it's really a catch-all, and it's really an appropriate place. As an example, our memberships and dues with the League of Arizona Cities and Towns, and also Maricopa Association of Governments, that will be in this particular department budget rather than the mayor and council budget, or rather than the town manager's budget. Another case in point is, as you could see, move almost the $69,000 for recruitment retention pay. We put that in general government rather than keeping it in the manager's office budget. It just doesn't make sense to be in my particular department budget. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mitzi to continue with the listing here. But this is really just for greater transparency and identifying a more appropriate location for these expenditures.
Okay, so yes, this was just a move between different departments into the general government department. But like Grady said, we moved the $69,149 for the recruitment retention pay for general fund employees from the town manager department into the general government department. We also moved the $148,500 for general liability, workman's comp, auto and property insurance from the administration department. We moved $30,000 for the Cave Creek Museum support of the local landmarks program from the administration department. And we also added a note to that line indicating that that was for the local landmarks program. We moved $9,500 for the memberships in MAG and the Arizona League of Cities and Towns from the town council department. We moved $7,500 for employee appreciation from administration department, and $10,000 for holiday celebration from the town council department. We added $10,000 to the fiscal year 25 proposed budget for volunteer appreciation per council's request. But that's residing in the general government department. And lastly, we moved $40,000 for community grants from the town council department. Moving on to the next slide for finance, we had corrected the one FTE from fiscal year 2024 from the management analyst positions in the authorized position table, and that can be seen on page 77 of the budget book or page 98 of 362 of the agenda packet. For the Public Works Department, we moved the fleet division from the administration department to the Public Works Department, and that can be shown on page 85 of the budget book and page 106 of 362 of the agenda packet. Also in Public Works, we made the council requested increase of $300,000 for the Cave Creek Road Median Enhancement Project for a total project cost in the Public Work Department of $500,000. So those are the general fund changes that we had made from our budget workshop sessions. The net of the above changes that we just went through to the general fund for the fiscal year 25 proposed budget is a reduction of 13,968 from the number that we had previously presented to you at the workshops. Any questions on general fund changes? Okay. So we'll move forward to the changes that we made to the special revenue funds. And it was actually just one fund, and that was Spur Cross, related to the correction of that formula for the half-cent sales tax. But that was an increase of 131,800 in sales tax revenues to that fund for a total revenue shown for fiscal year 25 of the $1,894,300. And that aligns with the 2% sales tax increase over the fiscal year 24 estimated amount. That change into Spur Cross revenue can be seen on page 95 of your budget book, or 116 of 362 of the agenda packet. Also on that page is the second bullet point here on the slide, which is because of the additional revenue correction that we had corrected in the Spur Cross fund, we ended up with extra revenue in there, which increases our transfers out of that fund. 50% going to the general fund and 50% going to the Cave Creek Water Infrastructure Fund. So half of the 131,800 is 65,900. So that increase, 65,900 went to the general fund, and the other 65,900 to the Cave Creek Water Infrastructure Fund, for total transfers out of Spur Cross to those funds, each of 829,550. And this next slide sounds a duplicate, but this is the change that's made to our capital project fund, which is the Cave Creek Water Infrastructure Fund. This represents the other side of the transfer that we just discussed, but it increased the transfer into this fund from Spur Cross, that 65,900 to the 829,550. And this change can be seen on page 101 of the budget book, or page 122 of 362 of the agenda packet. We're going to move forward to our enterprise fund changes. We just made one change, and that was to the wastewater fund, also related to the correction of the formula for the half-cent sales tax. We increased the revenue in the wastewater fund the same amount, the 131,800 to 1,894,300, to align with that 2% sales tax increase over the fiscal year 24 estimated number. This change can be seen on page 104 of the budget book, or page 125 of 362 of the agenda packet. Also on this same page, you'll see because of that additional 131,800 in revenue reflected in the wastewater fund, that reduced the amount required as being transferred in from the general fund. So it was a reduction of that 130. The transfer was reduced by that 131,800 to a total of 1,358,140. So this is all of the budget changes that were requested from the previous budget workshops. Are there any questions on these changes or anything I might be able to help answer?
Mr. Mayor, at our last meeting we had, and I won't certainly repeat it this evening, we had a lot of discussion on Spur Cross Ranch and the fund, and actually two funds, and there was discussion about changing the name of funds and so forth. But at the last meeting, and there may not have been consensus, but there was discussion regarding $100,000 being put into one of the funds, and I see that's not contained in the budget. What can this council do at this point of the budget before final adoption to try to raise the stature and the importance of beginning to build funds, not only for the category of open space preservation, but probably anticipating the state lands appraisal results and hopefully some piecemeal or larger than piecemeal acquisition of state lands. What can we do? For example, can we get the council's consideration of an ordinance change in the current calendar year to restore the percentage that had been allocated prior to its transfer back in 2014 by Mayor Francia? Can we get that after some forthcoming study that the staff is doing? And maybe consider a January 1st of 2025 date for restoring that original percentage rate for funds for open space. And if we're going to have a dialogue, maybe not this evening at this time, but getting these regular postings for more monies on water to at some point have a discussion about capital formation being done by bonding, which I think was a recommendation from the Water Committee years ago, to try to free up monies that I think we're going to need to demonstrate the town's intent with the state land department going forward. So I think we lost ground since the last meeting. And actually, I thought at the last meeting, we had a good discussion and some progress had been made, but I was corrected later that no, nothing was really accomplished. So the $100,000, that really was show money because it disappeared by the time the meeting was over. But can we get the council to consider doing something proactively going forward with the restoration of that percentage of the money that was originally established in the 0.5% sales tax? I mean, when we did it at the time, and I plead guilty to signing it, we made a commitment to the community that it would be out of their pockets, but it would be for Spur Cross and beyond. And I think now that monies have been used to alleviate other municipal challenges involving water and sewer, that, as I said last time, maybe we can try to reprioritize. You were on Facebook this weekend, Mr. Mayor, talking about state land. So I'm assuming that maybe there's collective support up here about doing state land preservation after the numbers come in. But can we be more definitive in the upcoming budget with, if not necessarily a commitment of monies, and as I understand it, we still have the 1.5 million that will be available July 1st.
That is, yes, and you'll see that when we run through the tentative budget highlights, but that's in the open space acquisition fund.
Okay, so you are starting with that foundational balance again in July 1st of the new fiscal year. But I know you've had it before, but it's still there. In other words, that's not a loss.
Well, I'm having trouble unpacking all those issues. So
Okay, I'll be succinct.
let's
I'll be
do
succinct,
one,
Mr.
let's do
Mayor.
one at a time.
What
and-
can we do to get the formula restored for the percentage that was in the Spur Cross original funding formula back for future open space preservation?
It
What would the council think is realistic? Or
it would take a change in
I
town
understand.
code, so we'd have to go
change-
through.
And it would take an amendment to the ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
Can we get that on the June agenda for preliminary consideration and then aim for a January 1st implementation after there's more staff study?
Okay,
What
well,
can we commit to this evening?
well,
on
let's
this issue?
make it a motion, make a motion.
Well, I'm trying to get a sense of the group. I don't want to.
Well,
buffalo you here.
I'm gonna be against it. I'll tell you that right
What
now.
would you favor, Mr. Mayor? Because you did a lot
Because-
of pros this weekend on state land acquisition.
Because we don't know what it's gonna cost. When I take,
So when are you going to start saving money for?
let me finish what I'm saying and I'll
Sure.
give you an answer. When I take 4,000 acres and multiply it by $20,000 an acre, which the number was given me by a real estate agent, that's $80 million. So it's gonna take a real plan to do this, and we don't have that plan today. And we are in the midst of developing information, so I think it's premature to start planning for that until we have the numbers and can put it together.
Mr. Barrett, I don't want to debate your observations on this. I just want to highlight the fact that water and sewer have met their challenges for many, many years by the use of this money. Yet it would appear that we're coming to the culmination of those monies being used for that purpose. And I'm not asking or suggesting to this group this evening for money today or tomorrow or July 1st. I would like to get some policy consideration for a point certain in the future for restoring that percentage of the formula that the town had used for other purposes during this past several years. If we don't accumulate enough money in the next 2 to 3 to 5 years, as the state land consideration is done by future councils, there may not be the legitimacy of the town's position to even purchase portions of some of the 4,400 acres of land. I mean, it's already kind of being carved up, I think, informally, like a cow for good steaks and ribback and so forth. So we may not acquire the full portion. But we have all this money on the books that we use for different purposes. And now this year, we're spending the money that was supposed to be savings, or whatever term you want to use, the 30 million going down to 20 million. But it's not competing. Open space preservation as a town priority is not competing successfully at the rate we're spending on water and sewer. So there's less money actually available for other investment purposes. And then secondarily, why are we not doing, or why can't at a later point, we talk about capital development through bonding with the never ending parade of requests from the staff for new water projects and upgrades? Is there nothing we can commit to with this council going forward that would follow the staffing advice to try to have some future point of those monies being restored?
Well, we're at a budget meeting now, so the thing we can do tonight is I'm looking at the brain trust here, is if you want to propose taking money from one section to another and having a council vote on that, we can do that. But we can't do anything on the agenda with code or
No, I
changes
understand that.
until we have it on an agenda. We could also, and you'd know right then what the support was for that.
So Mayor, if I may jump in, I know you're trying to finish a thought, but I did want to let the council know that part of the rate model for utilities on the water side includes that money that is transferred in from the Spur Cross into, I'm not saying Spur Cross, but that tax that generates money for Spur Cross does go into a transfer that goes to fund Utility 30, which is the water fund, Cave Creek Water. So, you know, it's going to have to be, if money there is being used to start socking it away for preservation, then maybe this fall, when I've mentioned before that we have to be looking at the capital master plan that Sean is putting together for our water and wastewater operations, that we need to look at, impacts from what we've seen on cost escalations and having rates absorb anything that we do here that we're talking about tonight. The rates would have to absorb the loss of $800,000 or so. If that's the council's direction.
So the net thing is utility rates will go up to cover that money, any money taken out.
If the decisions to do that, say prior to all the debt being paid off, or which I think starts happening in 28, 27, yes. So again, we can entertain the idea. It's just I mean, if it's a concept right now, and it's part of the motion to adopt the tentative budget, and to look at making a change to that, we can certainly do that and bring something back at a later date. But I think, there needs to be some look at the impacts on that.
Yeah,
And I'm
I
not really,
agree.
I'm not prepared to do that tonight.
So the net effect is if you take that money out of the water, you're going to have to include, it's going to come out of the pockets of people. Their utility bills are going to go up.
Well, conversely, though, you also have half the people subsidizing the other half people. So that tax that comes out of the sales tax, you've got people who aren't on water or sewer, and they're subsidizing people who are on town water and sewer. So it's a kind of a null argument. My personal feeling is water and sewer should pay for themselves. If they can't pay for themselves, maybe we ought to look at, getting somebody else to do it for us.
Well, somebody's going to pay for it. And
Yeah, I agree.
let me finish on saying, the rationale, when that was done, part of the rationale moving it over was that the people in the water company did not make these decisions. The town councils made the decisions that got us in the position on the water company where it was such a financial burden. And so the town council made the decision to ease that pain. And if we reverse that, that paint is going to go back in. And the water company benefits everybody. We don't have property values in this town because we don't have enough well water to supply everybody. And the water company is a huge factor in keeping property values high.
I've got no problem with what the water company providing service to the customers, nor the sewer company. I just think that they ought to pay for themselves. And yes, that's part of it. If you own a property that has a well and septic system, you're essentially creating your own infrastructure. So why should people who are on wells and septic systems be subsidizing people who are on town water and sewer? It's a rhetorical question, Bob. I'm not saying we solve the problem today. But over the next year or two, that needs to be solved. They need to pay for themselves.
Okay, well, we're not in a position to make these kind of financial changes on the spur of the moment because there are real effects to people. And we've got 20 years of history. It just didn't start yesterday. It started 20 years ago. The decisions have been made. And it's going to take really frankly until those bonds start to pay out before we're in a position to really make a dent in this. And that starts in 2027.
No, I think we should put it on the agenda and have a discussion.
Put what on the agenda?
But the whole, what are we gonna do with that sales tax? I mean, I think that's a good topic for a future agenda after
Well,
we pass the budget.
Well, we can certainly put it on the agenda for a code change, but I think we got two issues here. One is we got a budget in front of us
Right.
that has it there, and two, it takes a code change to make that
I
change.
understand, but I think we ought to revisit that. The coaching.
Well, it takes, I'm not ready to do that until we have a plan on the estate lands, because I think there's no sense doing some things ahead of time and then have to unring that bell later if it turns out that's not the case. So I think we need to have a comprehensive view of this thing and not just something that comes at the last minute in the budget, frankly.
Well, Mr. Mayor, that's not a fair description. This did not come up at the very last minute. We've had dialogue on this for innumerable meetings, including the last meeting. I was hoping we could have some collaborative discussion. I don't want to suggest a number that would be offensive to anybody on the council or might not be realistic. What I'm really after is we lost $100,000 since our last meeting. This effort's going backwards, not forward. I would publicly ask you, though, in the month of June, to try to schedule an initial discussion on an ordinance amendment for the purpose of restoring the percentage of the 0.05%
Okay.
back for open space. That's one thing I would ask, which I know it's not a budget agenda.
That we can do. We can, let's put the agenda item with the item would be to restore the funding the
Definitely.
way it was originally.
Staff hears that loud and clear. We'll do that.
Okay. And then, Mr. Mayor-
Just one point of clarification. I'm not looking to change everything next year or the year after, but we need to, over the next 2 or 3 years, particularly as we pay down those bonds, we need to do that. We need to make sure that the water and sewer pay for themselves.
Dusty, that's been the policy for many years here. And to say that that is just now starting now is absolutely inaccurate. There were many problems in the water companies. We were already decided to put together a bonding proposal to look to take the capital portions of the CIP. It's a mixture of maintenance items and capital, but to take the capital items out, because if you bond $1 million worth of capital, you only have to pay about $70,000 a year to
Correct.
carry that. But this isn't a new issue. There has been a tremendous amount of work done in doing exactly what you say, including well before you got here.
No, that's fine, but we're still, now you've been doing this for 14 or since 2014.
I have not been doing it.
Well,
It's
the council has. The
Okay.
council's been doing it since, well, but hear me out. The council's been doing it since 2014. So we've been admiring a problem for 8 years. Time to fix it, or 10 years. Let's fix the problem. Let's put it on the agenda in June and let's start talking about different options. I'm not saying that, I don't think we have the funding to, immediately turn it off and do it the other way around, but I think we ought to start putting money aside at an increasing volume over the next few years, so that when the state land trust, we can buy it, we buy as much as we can.
Well, I don't either agree or disagree with you. I think it's premature. We're doing the appraisals now, the approaches now, and it's a ready, fire, aim proposal. That's my take on it. It may be that's the answer, but why not wait until we do the analysis, see what it says?
Well, I thought we were supposed to have that analysis back shortly here.
The appraisal you're referring to? Luke, do you know when that is? It's June or something.
Right, Mayor, members of council, Councilman Rhodes, the town has selected CBRE, and we're negotiating the contract right now. And they, for their scope, projected a 6-week timeline to have that completed.
When would that be completed at? Based?
Okay, so then,
Once this contract is signed.
so then
so-
maybe it's better served that we
15
do
times.
this in July when we have the appraisal number and we can then talk about what the future looks like for the water and sewer instead of doing it in June.
Yeah, I really think they're independent. I mean, the water and sewer is on a path dealing with these, the bonds that have been with us for 17 years now. It really is about the state lands. That's the area that needs the planning. And we just don't have the number to do that today.
But Bob, I hear you saying, let's. Thank you again. Let's just have a plan to get that on the table. I appreciate your bringing those details to light here in this conversation. But we made a promise when we put that tax on that it was going to go in a certain direction. And so I think that's what I'm hearing Councilman Dusty say. And if we can get agreement with our town manager and with our mayor to have that out there somewhere as a serious conversation. I think
Well-
that's great.
Well, that conversation would be an agenda item to
Yes.
change it. Okay, well, you've heard it.
Okay.
We've done that.
All right. I just
So-
want to hear me say it.
I'd like to hear the other council members. Anyone else want to chime in here?
Yeah, obviously we've subsidized the utilities for a very long time. And I think as the loans are paid off, that is the time to begin to put the money back that we actually have taken from the half-cent. And in all honesty, the half-cent sales tax, when that was implemented to begin with for Spurcross, I don't think anybody ever foresaw the number being somewhere around, 1.8 million a year or whatever the number is. Mitzi, is that close?
It's for fiscal year 25, it's $1,894,300.
Yeah, we were, when that was instituted, you were probably looking at, maybe 400,000 a year. Just to cover the stuff. And I think the equitable thing to do is once we get the loans paid, then we restore those funds at the numbers at a reasonable rate that doesn't handicap us as far as the utilities also, because what we're doing is we're trying to build we built a reliable utility department that is there when you turn the tap on, water comes out, when you flush the toilet, that goes away. Those things are equally important in my mind. So I think there's a path forward that restores and gets us back to where we were at. That's about all I got to say about that.
Creating Spurcross was a seminal occurrence for the town of Cave Creek. I attended sessions recently at the regional park. And there may have been other people here who did also. And there are ongoing efforts to try to find ways to expand the open space that we have. I think we're all committed to those. I think it is going to be important to look at this in a holistic approach. The strategic approach is going to be very important. There's no question about the commitment, but looking at it strategically is going to be the way that we need to go about it, underlining the fact that we're all very committed to open space.
I just think that it's worthy of a discussion in the future. And we can discuss it more at length and in detail. And with great consciousness over what our responsibilities are as a town council and in fiscal management. Not only do we have a water utility that requires a lot of investment, but we have a fire company. And we cannot forget how that is exponentially going to grow in the next year or two. So we have to all keep that in mind. As much as we love open space, we have priorities here too, for safety and security of our community. And it takes a lot of money. And we have to really be aware of how much and where it comes from and what's responsible. Frankly, Tom, you got an extra $200,000 for medians.
3.
It said 3 to 500, from 3 to 5. So you got an
3
extra
plus
2.
2.
Pardon me?
I just want to say it's actually worse than you think. It's 500,000 total.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And to me, if we want to be serious and not just symbolic about being investment oriented towards preservation, then that 200,000 should go to the open space fund, not to medians. In my book, in my world, $250,000 or whatever the increase was, is a lot of money. $300,000 dedicated to improving our medians per year is a good number. And so if you want to show how much you're willing to compromise, I would suggest that we do that tonight.
Let's do that. I'll support the motion.
Good.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, I think you actually make a good point. Put your money where your mouth is. If you really believe in the critical timing importance of open space preservation, we have medians, they are vegetated. Why put such a criticality of spending on those? So if you want to make a motion at the appropriate time.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm happy with the way it is.
No, but I mean, I think she makes a good point.
Well, no.
Yeah.
The medians.
Yeah. I
In
don't.
other
know.
words, why would you prioritize medians in a commercial corridor over the chance of saving the creek out there, the canyons up on the state land?
Well, we're
So-
not, they aren't at risk. They are not at risk. The idea that something we're gonna do tonight is put them at risk is bogus. We have the right to initiate that auction and to make a bid, but before we do those things, we need to plan. It's a lot of money, and it may take one of these spur cross type tax increases to do it. But we need to plan. This town and these water companies are a testament to this ad hoc horseback reasoning rather than doing things logically, reasonably, in good time when the numbers are available. And that's what I'm going to support. I am not going to support the kind of things that got us in this to start with. And I think that just at the last minute, coming up with this and wanting to do this without rationally putting those numbers down, I don't think it's right.
Well, Mr. Mayor, just in response, and I don't want to.
See a light going on there.
Mr. Mayor,
Are
you
you-
have a couple options. You have some time until the bonds are paid off. That's what 26, 27. The state land department has told Luke that they'll abide by, they're considering extending the current IGA till when, 2029?
Well, it's, the 20-year period is good till 2029. They've expressed interest in extending those agreements beyond that.
So the point being, under those agreements, you're preserving the option. That gives you time then to take a look at your options once the bonds are paid off. But you don't have any urgency in terms of preserving the space because it's governed by the current IGA, which is 2029 and could be longer. And I don't know. So the point is,
We have to balance that though, because land ain't getting cheaper around here. We wait another 5 years, that land's gonna be worth a lot more than it is today.
I'm just saying there's time for you to consider. That's all I'm saying.
So
I'm grateful for the time you allowed for this discussion, Mr. Mayor.
Well,
Because I just was trying to see if there was anything that could still. be
But
done.
if you want to put on the agenda to put the money back the way it was as it originally was, I'm willing to do that.
Okay, I consider that a win. We're not defining the timing, we're just defining the conversation. Because that way we know at some point in the future down the road, when everybody recommends professionally. and
Well, I'm not
responsibly.
putting on as a motion that we vote on.
Well, I would second your motion, but I mean, that.
But it may win, it may lose. I don't
Well,
know.
If you want to make a motion, sir, I'll offer you a second.
Well, it has to be an agenda item. It's not
Oh,
agenda.
okay. All right, you talking about next time.
Yeah, it would be the next, another meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
To probably in July, as we talked, because we potentially could have the results
Let's
of the
find out,
appraisals back.
let's find out how much it's
August.
gonna
Luke thinks
cost before we
August.
start making decisions. So I agree with the mayor. Let's find out how much it's gonna cost and what, you know, what the state land trust or what the appraisal comes in at. And then we can have the discussion about water, sewer and the appraisal and all the other things at the same time.
In August.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, when the numbers are available, I'm ready. I mean, the appraisal was ordered by council. And if we hadn't done that, we wouldn't be even this far along. So we're just, I think we're just ahead of ourselves a little bit.
I don't want to belabor this a moment longer. But the only thing I was attempting to try to elicit was either from yourself or someone else up here to try to get enough meaningful money in an account to where if things begin to move with the state land department, we would look like we could afford the time of the person who's going to be meeting with us. We do have the 1.5,
8,
1.58,
no, 1.89.
1 point.
Now up to.
What's the actual number?
1.89.
No, we actually, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, not to be in a disagreement, but we had money in a different fund called Open Space, which is not the Spur Cross Fund.
So that's
And that's what we were appropriating. There was a fund balance there. We recommended appropriating the 1.5 for next fiscal year. What you're suggesting is the correct amount for Spur Cross if the full amount were to be allocated for open space.
But I think we need to be very careful that it's zoned open space as we speak, which is a very high hurdle for anybody to get over. It would take a supernova explosion in state law to get past that. The second thing is we have time. We've been told that there's no one interested in it at this point. The third thing is we have the ability to bid if that comes to pass. And the fourth thing is we are getting appraisal so that we can prepare a plan to do that. That's all a rational analysis. It's a rational way to handle this. We also have the ability to extend the agreement. So everything that can be done has been done, except putting the money in the bank because we don't have it. We're gonna have to find out where that money is gonna come from and how much it is. And today, as we sit here, we do not know that. And no one knows that. We won't know it until we get the numbers put together and do an analysis of do we fund it out of Spur Cross and sales tax, or do we fund it with bonding? That's all up in the air right now.
Well, again, I really appreciate everybody's time up here to go through this minutia. And I'm excited about this coming back this summer so we can discuss a future time for reactivating that percentage of the tax for that purpose. So I take that as commitment by everyone up here to do.
Okay, and
eventual-
we'll see. Luke, is there a time when this appraisal is supposed to be finished in these negotiations or not?
Mayor, members of council, the RFP closed 10 days ago. And we just announced to CBRE today that they were selected to move forward and be the contract appraiser for this. We still need to get a contract signed and then they'll start. They had stated about 6 weeks. That might be delayed a little bit until I return from Australia. They might get started and then because I'm really the only staff member that was here when those annexations were done and those agreements were put in. They'll likely need to interface with me a little bit on their background and research for the appraisal report. So they had estimated about 6 weeks to do. That's why I stated maybe August to come back because they might not get started, next week or the week after. They may delay that a little bit. Number one, for the contract to be signed, and then number two, for me to get back into town.
So I'd refer this to staff then. We're not, by the time we have if we schedule a vote on the what do you call it, Spur Cross or half cent tail sack,
Right.
then we will not have these numbers back by then. And there's going to take some time to get the numbers back and then put it together with our bonding attorney to develop what the options are for funding that purchase.
Sure, and just for clarification, you can certainly, if the council's desire was to possibly make a change to the ordinance, it doesn't have to have an effective date of, right then and there. It could be July of next year or thereafter. So,
Or January first of next year. That way you'd
I
have.
mean,
half the
once,
proceeds.
once analysis has been done is what I'm trying to say
Mhm.
on that. So, or 3 years out, whatever it may be, whatever the council's desires are.
Okay, so I'll work with you, Tom, to set a date that makes sense for this to come to council for a vote.
Thank you.
Okay. Where are we now?
Well, this was good. I know, everyone has the passion for the open space and preservation. It's just how we get there and when. So it was good for us to hear that. And we will certainly come back at a later date, working with the mayor and Tom on bringing that back to the council for that's further discussion. With that, I'll turn it back over to Mitzi to resume.
Oh, Mitzi's still here.
Okay, so we have wrapped up then the changes that we had from the budget workshop. So we're going to move forward to our tentative budget highlights. Oops. And we're going to begin with a summary of our revenues by fund, which is shown on page 44 of the budget book or page 65 of 362 of your agenda packet. This revenue table that's shown also includes uses of unrestricted fund balance. And for the general fund, the revenues in the tentative budget are $21,445,640. For our special revenue funds, the amount is $7,750,103. For our capital project fund, it is $2,978,198. And the total for our enterprise funds is $25,219,856, which leaves our total revenues in the tentative budget for all funds of $57,393,797. This next slide shows for our fiscal year 24-25. This is a pictorial view of the 25 proposed total expenditures by fund type. It reflects all operating and capital expenditures, and showing of in the general fund, we've got expenditures of $19,738,892. Our special revenue funds total $5,991,000 and $3 that are made up from the funds shown below there of the grant fund, the open space acquisition fund, the highway user fund, the Spur Cross Ranch Fund, and the our national opioid settlement fund for those amounts shown in yellow there on the slide. And the total enterprise funds total $31,663,902, which are made up of our Cave Creek Water Fund, our Desert Hills Water Fund, the wastewater fund, and the amounts proposed to be drawn down from our WIFA loan fund. The next slide is a table view of the previous slide and represents more detail of expenditures by department for the general fund. But in total, again, it's highlighted in yellow are those totals for the general fund, the special revenue fund, and the enterprise funds. But our total expenditures proposed for fiscal year 25 in the tentative budget equal our revenues at the $57,393,797. The next slide is our general fund summary. And this is a presentation for the general fund and breaks out our operating revenues and expenditures from our one-time sources and uses. This first slide of the general fund summary shows our fiscal year 25 proposed operating revenues for the general fund are $13,034,35. Or I'm sorry, $13,034,035. are proposing estimated operating expenditures in the general fund of $11,284,333. Proposed transfers coming in from Spur Cross are $929,550 for a positive net general fund operation of $2,679,252. That's the bottom right-hand corner number in green. That number rolls forward here to the top of the next slide, where we start here with that positive 2.6 million in general fund operations from the previous slide. The general fund one-time sources and uses are showing our construction-related revenue of $1,456,759. We have general fund capital expenditures proposed for fiscal year 25 of $7,295,200. And our general fund transfers out to our utility funds of $2,636,298. And our contingency of $1,159,359 for a net use of funds proposed for fiscal year 25 of $9,634,098. This number reduces the estimated beginning fund balance that the general fund is estimated to have of the $30,454,792 and leaves the proposed 25 general fund ending fund balance at $23,499,946. From this ending general fund balance, the town sets aside 3 months of operating expenditures in the operating reserve, leaving the general fund with an estimated fiscal year 25 unassigned fund balance of $20,678,863. It's the bottom number in the right in yellow. The next slide here is a pie chart of our fiscal year 25 general fund revenue sources, which is just showing 68% of our revenue coming from our local taxes, 15% from state shared revenue, 9% from interest income, 6% from local fees, and 2% from miscellaneous revenue. Next slide is our fiscal year 25 general fund expenditures by department. This pie chart reflects both our operating and capital expenditures for the general fund for each department. The next slide of the $7,295,200 that we had in capital outlay in the general fund from the general fund summary. This slide in front of you shows our capital initiatives that are proposed for fiscal year 25, with the biggest two being the fire station renovation at $2,899,000. And our street improvement projects at $2,993,200. We're moving forward for the tentative budget into our special revenue funds, the first one being the National Opioid Settlement Fund, which can be found on page 90 of the budget book and page 111 of 362 of the agenda packet. This fund is estimated to have a beginning fund balance of $30,103. It's estimated to take in settlement proceeds and interest income revenue of $10,846,000. And we are estimating to appropriate $40,949, which is all of the funds as expenditures, leaving the opioid settlement fund with a zero ending fund balance. The next special revenue fund is the Highway User Fund, found on page 93 of the budget book and page 14 of 362 of the agenda packet. The HERF fund is estimated to have a beginning fund balance starting at $203,807. Taking in highway user tax revenue and interest income of $408,589, and estimating a capital street expenditures of $475,000 for fiscal year 25, with our small contingency set aside per our financial policy of $39,359, leaving HERF with an estimated ending fund balance of $98,037. The next special revenue is our Spur Cross Ranch Conservation Fund, found on page 95 of the budget book and page 116 of 362 of the agenda packet. Spur Cross is the fund that gets zeroed out each year. So it's estimated to have a beginning fund balance of zero. And revenues are estimated to be collected for fiscal year 25 with the half-cent sales tax, some local fees and interest income for total revenues of $1,975,100. Expenditures of $216,000 that's paid to Maricopa County Parks for administration and operation of the park, and $1,759,100 in transfers out, which represents the $100,000 that gets transferred out for general fund trails. And then the $829,550 to the general fund, and the same amount out to the Cave Creek Water Infrastructure Fund, which leaves the ending fund balance in the Spur Cross Ranch Conservation Fund of zero for fiscal year 25. The next special revenue fund is our Open Space Acquisition Fund, which is found on page 97 of the budget book and page 118 of 362 of the agenda packet. The estimated beginning fund balance in the Open Space Acquisition Fund is $1,482,695. We are estimating proposed 25 interest income revenue to come in of $72,000, and we have appropriated all of the fund balance and earnings in the amount of $1,554,695 in fiscal year 25 for expenditures if needed, leaving the ending fund balance at zero if the appropriations are all expended in 25. And our final special revenue fund is the grant fund, found on page
Can I
9.
stop you just a second?
Sure.
Betsy? I just want to point out there that the Open Space Acquisition Fund shows $1.5 million in it, and it's shown as all spent. Because if we don't show it spent, if something comes up like we did at Spur Cross with the 30 acres, we can't buy it.
Right.
So that money, unless there is a project, and right now I know of no project to do that, so it's just there in case something comes up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mitzi.
Okay, so the last special revenue fund is our grant fund, found on page 99 of the budget book and page 120 of 362 of the agenda packet. This grant fund, similar to the Spur Cross Fund, is a zero fund balance fund. And what is estimated to be received in revenues in this fund is also appropriated for expenditures to be spent. So the beginning and ending fund balances are zero for the grant fund, and we are estimating revenues and total appropriated expenditures of $3,665,000. We're moving forward to our only capital project fund, which is the Cave Creek Water Infrastructure Fund, found on page 101 of the budget book and page 122 of 362 of the agenda packet. This fund has an estimated beginning fund balance of $3,553,386. We're estimating proposed fiscal year 25 interest income and earnings of 135,000 as revenue. And we have transfers in appropriated or budgeted in from Spur Cross in the amount of the 829,550, and transfers out budgeted out of this fund for $3,807,748. And that transfer out is to the Cave Creek Water Fund for the Phoenix Interconnect project. That leaves the ending fund balance in the Cave Creek Water Infrastructure estimated at the end of fiscal year 25 at $710,188. We're moving forward to our last set of funds, which are enterprise funds, and we're going to start with the wastewater fund, which is on page 107 of the budget book and page 128 of 362 of the agenda packet. The wastewater fund is starting with a zero fund balance, and we are estimating proposed 25 revenues, fiscal year 25 revenues coming in of $3,559,832. Operating expenses, including debt service, of $3,592,972, which leaves the net operations for the wastewater fund estimated in the negative at $33,140. We have transfers coming in from the general fund of the $1,358,140. And capital expenditures estimated to go out of the $1,325,000, leaving the net result for the wastewater fund at zero.
Question, Mitzi,
Mhm.
about the reserves. The WIPA loans are guaranteed by the general fund revenues. Is that correct?
The general fund has funded the WIFA reserves for the enterprise fund.
Yeah, but the loans themselves are guaranteed by the general fund, not by the constituent enterprise funds.
The loans are guaranteed based on the sources of income. Some of those bonds or loans are excise tax based, and others are the revenues of that applicable utility. It depends on the issuance.
But there are none that are strictly to Desert Hills. Is that right?
Some, yes, Desert Hills has with
We use the funds to construct in Desert Hills, but the loans themselves are not guaranteed or backed up by Desert Hills, either revenues or the assets.
yes, I'm going to confirm, but I believe we do have Desert
Let's
Hills.
just go on the assumption that I'm right.
Okay.
I just want to make a point here.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe Desert Hills does have, I just need to find the debt note here in the financial statements.
You're not gonna believe, well, I get shot down on that. I mean, it's really not important, other
Yes, okay.
than the aspect is that the WIFA reserves need to be funded by WIFA revenues. And I just want to make sure there are no accounting, especially since, they have not generated enough operating income, I'll call it, to fund those reserves.
They have not.
So it is, I want to make it, and I talked with Grady about this today. I'm absolutely convinced that we should not be putting general fund revenues over there. Someday somebody's going to forget about that. The rates in Desert Hills ought to cover their own WIFA reserves or their portion of the ones that are guaranteed by Cave Creek assets.
That is correct.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you.
Okay. Our next slide shows our wastewater capital initiatives for proposed fiscal year 25 of the $1,325,000 from the previous slide, made up of the projects reflected here on this slide in front of you. And our next enterprise fund is the Cave Creek Water System Fund. And Cave Creek Water starts fiscal year 25 with a beginning fund balance of $1,336,541. We have proposed operating revenues of $6,837,037. Estimated operating expenses, including debt service, of $5,920,195, which leaves Cave Creek Water with positive net operations of $916,842. The next section is the one-time sources and uses for Cave Creek Water. We have transfers showing a $5,085,906, of which $1,278,158 is a transfer in from the general fund, and $3,807,748 is the transfer into Cave Creek Water from the Water Infrastructure Fund. We have grant proceeds reflected of the $2,250,000, which represents the $2 million from the congressionally directed spending grant, Senator Mark Kelly grant, and $250,000 from the Water Smart grants that the town has received, $140,000 in interest income, and our capital expenditure uses of $8,392,748. Which leaves our net one time in the negative $916,842, which leaves the net result for Cave Creek Water at zero, but with an ending fund balance of the $1,136,541, which is the amount necessary to be held in Cave Creek Water to cover the WIFA reserves for that fund. The next slide is represents the Cave Creek Water capital initiatives that are proposed for fiscal year 25. You'll see the Phoenix Interconnect is listed on there twice, on the first line and then on the second to the last line there, with an additional $7,887,787 coming from our WIFA loan. So those two lines together represent the total amount spent for Phoenix Interconnect, or proposed to be spent for Phoenix Interconnect for fiscal year 25. But the grand total of Cave Creek Water capital with our WIFA proceeds being spent down is $16,280,535. And our last enterprise fund is our Desert Hills water system. Desert Hills had a beginning fiscal year 25 fund balance of $36,802. We're estimating operating revenues coming in at $4,525,200. We have operating expenditures proposed at $3 million. Operating expenditures plus debt service proposed at $3,599,547, leaving Desert Hills in the positive $925,653 as their net operations. The next section is the one-time uses and sources section. We have a small amount of interest income shown of $20,000, a little bit of a contingency in there for $12,941, and capital expenditures of $932,712, leaving net one-time negative $925,653, which leaves the result of the Desert Hills Water Fund at a net zero balance, but with an ending fund balance starting with what they had with the $36,802, which is not enough to cover the $466,591 that they have set aside to cover for the WIFA reserve. So it leaves the unassigned fund balance for Desert Hills Water at a negative 429,789. The next slide shows the fiscal year 25 proposed capital initiatives for the Desert Hills Water Fund of the total capital of the 932,712, made up of the projects that are displayed there on the slide. The next slide is a debt overview slide for our utility funds, which are the only funds that we currently hold debt in. The first column there shows our original loan amounts that were made when the debt was issued for the three utility funds. The total is $66,772,000. Our principal outstanding of those loan amounts as of July 1st of 2024, the total is the $16,711,927. So we've made great progress in paying our debt down on these utility funds over the years. The last column shows the payoff dates for each utility fund, with the first being Desert Hills in the last payment being made July 1st of 2028, wastewater 29, and Cave Creek Water of 2030. With a small note or a big note asterisk there that the amounts for Cave Creek Water that are reflected there do not include the new $13,190,000 in the WIF alone for the Phoenix Interconnect project as of this time, because we've not spent any proceeds down on that yet. So we don't have those numbers to reflect in there. So in front of you tonight is the motion to adopt the tentative budget. The first bullet point on this slide is a reminder that the tentative budget caps the total expenditures for the town for fiscal year 2024-25. So what that means is after the tentative budget is adopted tonight, the amount cannot be increased. It could be reduced and or switched between buckets, but that amount cannot be increased once adopted. And the motion to adopt the tentative budget for the town of Cave Creek for fiscal year 24-25 is in the proposed amount of $57,393,797. And the final slide is just the next step in our fiscal year 25 budget process, and that is on Monday, June 30th on Monday, June 3rd of 2024, there will be a public hearing and adoption of the fiscal year 24-25 final budget and adoption of our official Auditor General budget forms by resolution. And final slide is any questions? Tentative budget. Thank you.
I'll put this into a question.
Okay.
Is it true that our budget means that's the maximum we can spend? It's not what we will expend. It just means we can go up to that point. We cannot exceed that point, but it is very likely based upon the past practice. We don't spend as much as we budget.
That is correct, Councilman McGuire. Thank you for stating that and pointing that out.
Other questions from council? I just want to point one thing out is if you want to look at the bottom line number, which is the general fund balance, it is decreasing this year. We have an excess of money. We have a lot of money there. And so the decisions were made as we went along to spend that on getting the roads up to speed. There's $3 million of road expenses that spent 500,000, 600,000 in the past, and we got way behind. So that's a catch up. It's a one time, so it's not to be repeated. We'll will hopefully stay current. after
Right,
we
the
check-
council, I think, said they want to do that over the next 3 years and do some catch up.
Right. The second thing is we have the fire department, the fire building, the truck, the startup costs, the one-time startup costs. We also made a decision to take that out of our reserves. That is a non-recurring expense. So that's what brings that down. The important point there is we're not using our savings account to pay for any ongoing expenses. It's only being used to purchase capital expenses that are for the good of the town.
Correct.
Yeah.
That is true. And those two projects were shown on that general fund capital initiative page. But yes, you are correct. Those are coming out of our fund balance reserve.
Okay, we have public comment on this if there are no further questions.
Mayor Jim Grubb.
Am I hooked up? Yes, I am. Thank you very much. Jim Grubb, 6501 East Lone Mountain Road North, Cave Creek. A couple of comments on this budget. Some people seem to think that sales tax revenues are going to be a major factor in our present and future. That's just not true. 7 million plus in that budget comes from the general fund sales tax revenues. That's about 13% of that budget. What's it take to get much more in sales tax without increasing taxes? Well, for every $100 million in increased commercial activity in our town core, we get 3 million. That's 5% of that $57 million. So sales tax revenues just aren't going to be a major player. They're an important player, but not a major player in our future. We can't touch $100 million worth of increased commercial activity in our town. We can't do it. It's out of reach. So another point, I'm looking at the long-term capital improvement program for water and wastewater. Well, the number on that is around 39 million. Okay, what's that going to do to our water rates? We don't know, because we can't know. We can't know because we don't have any long-term financial planning for water and wastewater. The way you do that is if you got a long-term financial plan, you can plug in your capital investment numbers into that, and that'll tell you what's going to happen to your water rates. We don't have one of those. And it would be really nice to do that, to know how water rates are going to be affected before we spend the money. Okay? The other point I want to hit on is the spur cross. Excuse me. I missed my point. We subsidize water and wastewater, and we have all along. I look back at the numbers from 2018-19 to 2022-23. How much did we really? I had a hard time finding it because it's buried in the statements. But at the end of the year audited statements, we spent tax money subsidizing of $24.8 million for that 5-year period. We just keep subsidizing and subsidizing. It just has never ended. It's been a history and a way of life, it seems like, in Cave Creek, to subsidize with large amounts of stack funds. And that's what we're doing now. And no long-term plan to cut it out. Oh, well. So let's talk about the Spur Cross Fund a little bit. The numbers on the Spur Cross Fund going back through 18-19 through the current one, about $10+ million have or will be coming into the Spur Cross Fund. $7+ million will be taken out, 85%. This current budget takes out 89% of that fund as written in the budget. We get about 1.9 million in there, and we'll be taking about 1.7 million out. Again, a lot of people really believe, and I help them find out how the big numbers are, that we shouldn't be doing this, that has gone against a basic value of our community about preservation. that we should get back to preservation. We should get back to our fundamentals and restore that fund and use it as it was initially intended for preservation. So my final comment on this budget and the 56.5 million last year is sustainable, but I see in the future, as an economist and a financial advisor, what's ahead down the road. It's going to be a while, some mix of significant water rate increases, significant wastewater rate increases, potential tax increases, and certainly government fee increases. That's what I see ahead. And I'll be making my case to the voters to we can have both a reduced budget and better and the use of this fund with a much more effective financial management than I am seeing right now. So that's my case. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No further requests, Mayor.
Okay, we have no requests, so we're ready for a motion on the budget. Anybody want to make it? I will make it. Council discussion, possible adoption, motion to adopt the Town of Cade Creek fiscal year 2024-2025 tentative budget in the amount of $57,393,797.
Second.
Okay, I had the motion.
Ernie, you take it.
Yeah, since I'm a short timer. You know, the reason that we have a tremendous amount of money in the bank is because the budgets over the years since we came out of the Great Recession, have been very conservative as far as the expenditures that we looked at. We've got a tremendous amount of money in the bank. I've always said that if we wanted a 737, although I don't think we should get a MAX, we could put it in the budget with no intention of buying it, but the money would be there in case it came in and we needed to spend it for some reason or another. In order to see how we came up with the savings that we currently have, you go back and look through the CAFRs over the years, and we have spent substantially less, and that put us in a position to be able to afford the upgrades that we're making to the roads and everything else that we're doing in this budget. I wholeheartedly support it.
I'll give my comments as the motion maker, and that is, this is a responsible budget. We were the same comments last year with the $56 million budget. This is $57 million budget, and we've increased spending on fire. We've increased it on roads, and we're building a water interconnect project with which this town needs to even survive. So we're solving problems with this budget. It's not being frittered into the sky. It's being used to make this a better place to live and to be able to afford things like open space. So I'm certainly going to support it. Other comments from the left?
Yeah, and my goodies on here. We're good to go. What pleases me about this budget is that you can actually follow our planning, follow our spending back through our strategic plan and to the issues in our general plan. And I know the staff worked on that, and I really appreciate it. It makes sense. Thank you.
Anyone else down here? Tom McGuire.
There is a process that we go through that's very important. It starts out with a lot of discussions, listening to the people in the community, discussions among ourselves. We don't always agree with one another, and hopefully that allows us to come to a point that the citizens get something better than they would have had otherwise. But I think the way that the council has worked, we've listened to the citizens. This has been very successful. I also see a lot of expertise with me on this council. I've been on the council for quite a number of years, and I've seen the way that the council operations have changed. They have matured, and that's something I think Ernie has seen also. And so I think that's reflected in the way that we're moving forward. We're making very valid planning, and I'm really pleased with it.
I just wanted to say that in addition to all the huge items that are in this budget, fire related, water related, roads related, we have money that we haven't had in the past for people. And I think that that is a significant thing to mention. And I'm so glad that we've created this new general fund because it's easy to find where we're investing in people. First of all, we have our 40,000 in community grants. We did not increase that. I did not think that that was necessary. I think we wisely, our new committee for approving grants was very conservative, but yet we reached 12 different organizations this year. And we're very proud of that program, and it will continue in that amount. We added $10,000 for volunteer recognition because this town really relies on volunteers at the Tourism Bureau, on all of our commissions and committees. And it's time that we recognize all the people who give their time freely to this community. We're finally going to have some money associated with holiday celebrations, which we've never had. Other cities go to great lengths to celebrate the holidays, 4th of July, Halloween, Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever it may be. We're finally allocating some resources to enjoy the holidays with each other in this community. We have $7,500 for employee appreciation. Thankfully, we can recognize our employees on our town staff in a very valuable way. Hopefully a nice luncheon with some recognition for all their hard work. So my point is, it gets buried in the big number, but we've targeted some money to really appreciate people because that's who does all this work. And so thank you for supporting this budget. It's really important to us all.
Councilmember?
So I think the entire budget process this year was much smoother than last year. And I support this budget, not because I like everything in it, and I don't think there's anybody up here that likes everything in it, but we followed the process. We saw the totality. We saw the individual pieces. We can tie it back to a cogent strategic plan. And probably for the first time in history, we have budgeting software that allows us to see that end-to-end picture. So I want to thank Mitzi for doing that because that's a Herculean task. And I just think that this is a light years improvement over previous year's budget. So I want to thank you for that.
With that, this is seeing no further comments.
One last one I forgot. I didn't get to mention that for the first time, we have funds allocated to the Cave Creek Museum. And well-deserved for taking over the local landmarks program and other things that they do on behalf of this town. Congratulations.
And before we vote, I want to add, Bitsy, you're about to say something.
I just wanted to also recognize, thank you for the comments, Councilmember Rhodes, but I also wanted to recognize Bridget. She has been here in my absence and has done a ton of work with regard to the budget. So
thank you, Bridget.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. I'd like to recognize all staff because this was a tough year for the budget with the changes in budgeting software. It was a real challenge, and I think the entire staff, all the numbers, of course, roll up, and then all that stuff lands in the finance department to make sense out of. So, congratulations to everybody for all your hard work and the success. I think we're going to get a vote here. We'll see. So with that, let's have the roll call, please.
Councilmember Augerton.
Aye.
Councilmember Bunch.
Yes.
Councilmember Elkema.
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire.
Yes.
Councilmember Rhodes.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Royer.
Yes.
Mayor Morris.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. So we have a maximum expenditure limit. The next on the agenda is a council discussion approval of an agreement with Baker Tilly US LLP for the fiscal year 2024 audit for an amount up to $49,000 with options to renew for 2 fiscal years, presented by the town manager and finance director.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The item before you, as you mentioned, is for auditing services. Current firm right now is Baker Tilly. Under our interim finance director, he solicited proposals from 3 different firms, and Baker Tilly came in the lowest. Again, this is a professional service. It does not require us to go and do a competitive process. However, I thought it was important to do so we can get the lowest price. We're recommending that the council approve the audit services with Baker Tilly for next fiscal year. It is a multi-year, so we don't have to come back to the council for 3 years. So this actually saves a lot of time and effort going off and kind of doing soliciting for proposals. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the mayor and council may have. Oh, one other point I wanted to make sure that the council knew. This is not changing anything that we are doing with our current council audit committee. So the firm will be working with the audit committee before coming back and doing their actual services for the town. So.
Thank you. Questions? There is public comment.
No request to speak, Mayor.
Okay, we're looking for a motion.
I'll make it. Motion to approve an agreement with Baker Tilly US LLP for the FY 2024 audit for an amount up to $49,000 with options to renew for 2 fiscal years.
Second. You had the
It
motion.
makes
so
sense, and I'm glad they're doing it for 3 years.
I second that. Other comments? Okay, this is fiscal.
Councilmember Bunch,
Yes.
Councilmember Elkama,
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Aye.
Councilmember Algerton,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Royer,
Yes.
Mayor Morris.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. And next on here is this is one I've been looking forward to. Council consideration of first reading of ordinance number 2024-03, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, amending the town of Cave Creek zoning ordinance, chapter 12, entitled Site Plans, section 12.2, entitled Procedures, subsection A, with either option A, council directed consideration, or option B, recommended by planning commission, presented by senior planner. And there they are.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Senior planner is on there. He will be presenting, should council proceed with this first reading this evening. He'll be presenting second reading as I will be in Australia. So he'll be here next time.
We're in good hands.
You are here. At any rate, this was born out of a site plan case that went before the planning commission earlier this year. The chairman did not allow for public comment at that meeting. There was concern mentioned to the council when the site plan case came before the council that they would have liked the opportunity to address the planning commission. In March, the town manager brought forward a request to get council direction to proceed with an ordinance text amendment. Staff did that in April last month. The planning commission recommended denial of the text amendment, which would require a public open house be taken prior to a case proceeding to the planning commission. In lieu of that, the planning commission did recommend that the chapter 12 of the zoning ordinance be amended to require that the planning commission take public comment for site plan cases. So that was the text amendment they proposed as option B. What you have in front of you is option A, as I stated, and is in your packet on page 251 of 362 is the option where an open house would be required. And then just after that, option B is on 253 of 362, which is what the commission recommended. That would permit the public comment for the planning commission in lieu of the other text amendment that would require the open house. With that, I may defer to legal counsel, but if council has any questions at this time, I'd be happy to answer.
Questions?
I thought we gave pretty specific guidance on option A. I didn't think we asked for a option B, and I'm trying to figure out why we even have an option B here.
The planning commission is an advising body to the town, and they are able
So,
to propose and make
punting-
recommendations.
Hunting a problem that they refuse to accept, now they want to accept it. I think we need to go with the option A.
I agree, not necessarily for that reason. I actually think that they had a right to offer an option, and we have a right not to accept it. I think that some of their arguments were that it takes more staff time, could delay the approval process. And while that may be true, the voice of the people is more important than all of that. And so I think that we should have an open house. And I think our town manager was the one who, frankly, was the one who suggested it. I may be wrong, but I know he's in favor of it, despite the fact that it may require more staff time. So I like option A, and I hope that we go along with it.
This is questions rather than discussion.
Yeah, we're really in the question
Oh,
phase. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we're in the question.
I agree with you.
Mr. Sims, how many of the municipalities that you represent actually go through this?
Let's first answer the procedural question. It is not inappropriate for the body charged with making recommendations regarding a zoning ordinance to have a recommendation. So the fact that the commission made a recommendation is not inappropriate, but the vice mayor said it correctly. It's your decision. And this is your decision. This is a policy decision. For the risk pool, we have 77 cities. I do land use. You would be the only one I know that do this. But you are a very unique community. But I just want to caution you, by going down this path, you're going to have to make sure that whatever notices that would occur at the commission occur at the open meeting level. Otherwise, you'll deny due process. Secondly, this is an administrative act. Once an applicant satisfies the administrative requirements, you have a duty to approve. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't have, and Vice Mayor, you asked me a question about 6 months ago. That doesn't mean that either you or the commission, whomever makes this decision, doesn't have the opportunity to be guided by public input. That's what this would occur. I think we're here because the planning commission unwisely denied public comment and you all reacted. You have the right to do this, but it will require 2 sets of notices, and it doesn't change the administrative requirements as this is applied. You have the right as legislators in terms of passing the zoning ordinance to impose requirements which then create the administrative standards that are measured. That's where you have the right to do almost anything, as long as it's not completely arbitrary and capricious. Here, when you're enforcing an administrative requirement, you have to follow the rules. And this will be 3 steps. It'll be at the open house, and there has to be all the same notices as at the commission, and if need be, if you disagree with the commission, at this council. But as I said, I'm the town attorney for 9 towns. You are the most unique, and you do bend over backwards for public input. That's what you're doing, because none of my other 77 do this.
77. There's only, what, 90 towns in Arizona? And you've.
Honestly, the larger jurisdictions actually delegate it to staff, because they want staff to make the decision, and because it is administrative, and they want the person's most first in the administrative requirements to make the decision. The larger jurisdictions don't do this. They delegate it to staff.
Council, is the planning commission, do we need to tell them to, option B, do we need to tell them to have public comment, or can they do that on their own?
No,
That's required.
by doing this, you would prevent what happened. This says they have to provide it.
Yeah.
They took the position wrongly, I believe, not allowing it, which is why we're here. So the option B is public comment will be allowed. In fact, I would probably strike that to be shall be allowed. But honestly, We don't get to make that. You get to decide. We don't. I'm just giving you the context.
Yeah, yeah. But they could have done it on their own. That's what I'm trying to see.
Yes, sir.
They chose the option of not having public comment. We wouldn't be here if they had chosen the object, to have public comment. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
We have,
I want to defend Mr. Breckner and the planning commission because I think they listened to us. They listened that this is generally an administrative procedure. You don't have to listen to the public. And so I think he was trying to take direction from us that he didn't have to listen to the public. And it wasn't a good interpretation of what we had said. Maybe it was what we said, but I think he really was trying to conform to what other communities are doing and to what made the most sense. And unfortunately, he inherited the wind.
other questions? After you get done, Cynthia is in the room and she was in for that. I'd like to have her come up at some point, but go ahead with your question.
Well, my question is, our request was to include a new item where an informal open house meeting shall be held by the town staff. Okay, that was our request for this work to be done. And I don't think that there's any intent on any of us to circumvent the ordinance. It's a good ordinance. It asks applicants to pay attention, and there are boxes to be checked to make sure that that happens. But in Cave Creek, people love to be heard, and it's part of what we do here. And our promise in both the general plan and our strategic language is we're going to make a great effort to listen and communicate. This is an opportunity to do that. So I really like option A.
Cynthia, would you approach the dais and give us the flavor of what's going on?
Mayor
and-
Morris and council members, thank you, Cynthia Driscoll, Vice Chair of the Planning Commission. This topic had robust discussion at our last commission meeting. All of the same items that have been brought up in discussion today. Across the board, the commission felt that the site review plan is administrative in nature and reinforced that opinion and felt that it could be something that's handled at the staff level as opposed to the current ordinance. However, there was a split vote across the board on both option A and option B, I think was the full commission supported. We understand that the issue did come to council because the chair had opted not to have public comment on a site review plan. And that's what put this ball in motion. We feel like to correct that, the option would be to state clearly in the ordinance going forward that the Planning Commission will allow public comment on site review plans as long as that site review plan remains under the purview of the Planning Commission.
I have a question. So the applicant would be at this plan commission meeting where the questions would be taken?
They have been at most of them, but they are not required, I think, to be there.
So that begs the question, how would a resident's question of the applicant be appropriately answered if the applicant wasn't in the room?
Those questions would most likely be directed towards staff.
So there's a gap there as far as I can see.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Sims, but in the course of a meeting, it's Robert's Rules of Order. So there really isn't a dialogue between an applicant and the public. Generally, any dialogue would be during an applicant's presentation to the board or body it's presenting to. But generally speaking, if neighbors or residents that obtain notice and notification of upcoming development and site plan review cases, it's really, I can't stress enough, staff's, and in most cases, the applicant's contact information is laden throughout those notices that go out. So there is ample informality to contact staff or an applicant and have a conversation about what they intend to develop on their property.
Other questions?
I think there's a misconception among some people in town that Luke or our staff is working for the developer. That is not true. Those people, our staff is working for us. When people come in and they talk to Luke, Luke will represent the interests of the town in working with these people. He is an important intermediary to allow the developer to make the best development that satisfies his needs and the needs of the community. But Luke does not work for the developers. He works for the people. And if the people better understand that, maybe they would be more willing to come in and ask of staff questions that needed to be asked. That's where it can be dealt with most readily. And I'm very conscious of what Council, Mr. Sims, has cautioned us that if we go for option A, we may be looking at some really difficult issues. I think we got caught in the middle of trying to move towards something that truly was an administrative function, is in other towns. And we can do that and still have people be able to express their opinions. We can encourage their opinions and make it work much more smoothly. So I think adding the extra steps in here, I'm afraid that can get us into trouble.
Is Cynthia done?
Yeah, something else? Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Cynthia. Other comments? Okay, so we are ready for public comment, I guess.
No comment, Mayor.
Okay, so we're ready for a motion. So
I'll make the motion because I was the one that, I believe Catherine and I were the two that commented on it. Motion to approve first reading ordinance 02024-03, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, amending the town of Cave Creek zoning ordinance, chapter 12, entitled site plan, section 12.2, entitled procedure, subsection A, by including a new item where an informal open house meeting shall be made or shall be held by the town staff with the applicant in attendance prior to going before the planning commission, establishing an effective date and providing for repeal and severability.
Second.
Dusty, you had the motion, so your comment?
The gap exists with option B. Even if they allow that, the person who's doing the development doesn't have to attend the meeting. With option A, the developer needs to show up to the meeting. And I think that's the only legitimate way we're going to get that dialogue between our citizens and the developers. And I do believe that that is what most of the people in the town are in favor of. And yes, it will be an administrative burden.
The second?
I just think it's really important for us to project our faith and trust in the public process. And we have not done that sufficiently. And that's why we're here. And so what we need to do is correct that perception that we don't think the voices of our residents are important enough. And I think that we do at this level, perhaps, but the Plan Commission is all business, and I respect that. They're here to do a job and to check the boxes, and especially with the site plan, because there's not a lot of wiggle room there. And so we will absolutely need to make clear that of the parameters of this open house, what we can do and what we can't do. And that can be done because people are not stupid. And so I'm in favor of having one meeting with FaceTime with the applicant and the residents who are interested in his new or her new business. I don't think that hurts anything. We may be one of 90, but we're proud of that. And maybe they'll follow our path in the future when they see how well it works.
Other comments?
I just sort of had a question more than a comment. So tell me if I'm interpreting this correctly. Under option A, there is the open house, and then it goes on to P&Z. But the P&Z is still required to have a public hearing.
Yes.
And then under B, it's the public hearing. So the only, and they are required to hold a public hearing still. Okay, so the only substantial difference is it's an open house. If an applicant wants to appear with the community in more of the informal setting and so forth. The only reason I asked the question, I want to make sure what I'm voting on is that some people have felt this was to replace the requirement by the planning and zoning to have a meeting, and they thought they were being shuffled off to Buffalo basically for the open house. So really the only difference is an additional opportunity if the applicant and or the neighborhood chooses to avail of itself. And then nobody can argue that the planning and zoning hasn't already been amended by this motion, right? Did I get that right?
I think so. yeah.
Okay, okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We're good. Tom, any comments?
No, I think I made the comment that I did.
Mel, you're gonna have to call for a roll call on this one, I can guarantee you. My concern is those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. And what this does is by allowing the public to be involved in this, it sets unrealistic expectations of our ability to stray from our existing ordinances and zoning. Elected officials, or maybe not elected officials, politicians have a predisposition to bending to the will of the people, even though it's not in the best interest of the overall organization. I think that this is ill-advised. From my perspective, it should be administrative. It should be sitting at the level of the staff. If it's allowed in the zoning and the ordinances, then there's nothing that we can do. I can go back to your history, Mr. Oggerton, Councilman. When Councilman Oggerton was mayor of the town of Cave Creek, and he did not participate in the meeting based on the records that I've seen. He and the vice mayor did not show up. The council had a meeting with 5 people, took it upon themselves to approve a site plan that they had drawn up themselves. And at the end of that procedure, the Superior Court said, will the defendant please rise, which was someone from the town of Cave Creek who we ultimately got to write a check for $1.2 million. We're setting ourselves up for failure and for losses. I've worked really hard in trying to keep us out of courtrooms since I've been on this council. It's been one of my major goals. And I think that this is an ill-advised move. So I'm vehemently opposed to this action.
These are my comments. First of all, the legislature is going to solve this for us. We came within a veto of having this jammed down our neck where you have to, boom, throw it out, along with many, many, many other brutal changes to our ability to zone and to plan the town. We're probably going to have a new legislature, maybe a veto-proof legislature, and we're headed the wrong direction here on a couple of issues. One is extending the time. Now we've got 3 meetings to deal with. And the planning commission discussion, which I read and reread and reread and reread, and I'm still not sure I understand everything, was they were trying to solve this, and I think they saw it. They saw the multiple meetings. Now we're going to have 3 meetings when you can't do anything at any of them. So the overall inefficiency, I'm just struck by how inefficient this is. I don't like either of these proposals. When I look at the cost that you put out there, we get $2,000 maybe, and it's costing us $5,000 in staff time and things. I don't think any of these work. I put down the sort of things that I would want to see in this code for me to support it. One is it's administrative, so lower the town cost. So the town staff didn't support 3 different meetings with all the agenda items and minutes that go with that, a faster approval. And like I say, the legislature is probably going to take that away from us, frankly, at some point. I don't know when, but we do need public comment. We absolutely have to have public comment, but I think that ought to be directed towards identifying site plan issues that need to be changed. Because there is no other productive use of that other than, oh, gee whiz, we've got a problem here with the way we're doing site plans, so we need to change the code. I mean, I think that's where that'd go, but I just see all these problems with this and the overall inefficiency brought out by the planning commission minutes. So I have changed my mind and I will be against either option when they come up. The B is the better of the two because it's more efficient in my view. And it gets public comment, but I'm gonna vote against both of them. And
Is there a way that we could come back with option C? I'm serious. I mean, can somebody be creative and try and resolve this? That we can all approve.
Follow the other 76 communities and let staff do it.
But
Well, staff.
It's our
could do
ordinance.
it, but the commission didn't allow it. And so that's why we're here.
It's our ordinances that they're maintaining the fidelity to when they deal with these people. So if we got a problem with our ordinances, then we ought to fix those if there's an issue.
So, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion on the floor.
Oh,
Well,
so, yeah, you're calling the vote and that's completely appropriate. So we have a motion on the floor. It's option A. And I think we should do a roll call just to start.
Councilmember Elkama,
Let me hear the motion again.
It was option A.
Option A.
option A to have an
Okay.
extra meeting.
Then I'm gonna vote yes. We need to hear the people.
Councilmember McGuire,
I agree, we need to hear the people, but I'm voting no.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Aye.
Councilmember Augurton,
Aye.
Councilmember Bunch,
no,
Vice Mayor Royer,
believe it or not, I'm going to vote no, because I think that we can do better. I think that we can come up with another option, C, that we could all live with.
Mayor Morris.
No. So the motion fails and the town manager just had a meltdown.
Mr. Mayor, if I can try to be of help, but is there more discussion or is that a final vote or?
That's the final vote. Yeah, but if you have some, I'm sure they're gonna be looking for ideas. Right now, we're stuck
Well,
until we.
Someone can still bring a motion back to try to do a third option with the failure of A. Is that correct? I'm
yeah.
sorry? If the motion failed, can a substitute motion or successive?
Yeah,
motion-
yeah.
Okay.
It's on the agenda, so you can do that.
Okay, well, let's just try that for a second. Here's the problem. We're the problem because we're the council that approved the people on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I was a no vote on the chair. He had enough votes to get back on. So we own the people that have been appointed with the Planning and Zoning Commission. The problem is not with the ordinance. The problem is with the appointments. And we have an arrogant Planning and Zoning Commissioner who decided not to take, that would be one.
I'm
opinion.
gonna ask you,
Okay, that would be one opinion.
yeah,
So
we
if
need to
it's
keep this
overkill,
without
it wasn't
personnel.
created by the council, except for the original appointments that we made. So to go back to a third option, which the vice chair suggested, may be worthy of looking, and now you have to because it failed. But the problem was caused at the Planning and Zoning Commission by the way the public was treated. So this is overkill, which some have said it is. At least there's a request to do something new that would make sense to still provide the inability for the Planning and Zoning Commission chair or any vote by that commission to say, no, we're not going to hear from the public. So let's put the blame where it belongs, which is on us. Unfortunately, we as a body approved that individual to come back and he was reappointed as the chair. So either we can do better on appointments or we can do better on communicating with the commission to tell them the ethic of what the public is expecting. So.
I would like to respond.
Tom?
I truly think that, I appreciate what you have to say, Councilman Algerton. That we all have different styles of working with things. But I think that Mr. Brechter was looking at our idea that, this should be administrative. His interpretation was, let's make it more administrative. In so doing, people felt that they'd been cut off. That's really very unfortunate. But I think he was really working on discussion from us. So I feel he really was trying to do the right thing and it just didn't work out.
Why wouldn't option B? Why couldn't we go back for a vote on?
Well, we can, but somebody needs to make a motion here. Is there, I guess we can have discussion, but is there a motion that you'd like to make?
Well, Mr. Mayor, if you're asking for a motion to go with option B, and if we have the certainty that the requirement by the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to require a hearing, whether or not the chair wants to do so, which is, has it's always been, we're restoring it back to 0.0. And if there's no support for option A, I would move option B.
Yeah.
So
Are you moving option
Yes, sir.
B?
Yes.
I'd like to, if you're gonna do that, change it from by allowing to shall
Yes.
Yeah,
have
yeah,
public comment.
Yeah.
Which page is that on, Dusty?
It's on the bottom option B where it says section 12.2, fifth line down. Entitled procedures, subsection A, by allowing public comment, instead of saying by allowing public comment. Shall have public comment,
Shall allow.
shall allow public comment.
Yes.
I don't understand the difference.
In other words,
Line
it
6.
would mean that in the planning commission would have to listen
It
to
would
what
have to
people
listen
have
to
to
the
say,
public.
which is what they were doing for many years.
Councilmember Auger, do you accept that motion?
sir. Sure.
You do, okay. So is there a second to the amended
I'll
motion?
second that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any discussion? Well, you had it, did you, either you two want to make a statement on your motion?
No, sir.
Okay. Anyone else want to say anything about it?
I want to say something, and I just want to reinforce that the people, I hope that the public will go to those who can help them the most. And our staff are people who can give them the greatest service, help them the most. They are our experts. They can also come to us at the end of the process. But the services, the expertise we've got on staff, I hope that more people will go to them and understand how they can have a greater influence by dealing through staff, and that staff works for them. They don't work for the developer.
Comments?
Can I ask a question of the,
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Mr. Sims, what are the other municipalities that you represent do? And it's administrative, do they have a methodology for informing the public more about what's going on, or is they just?
Of my 9, generally small, none delegated administratively. They all do it at the commission. But Luke has done lots of research, and it's roughly 50-50 between some who do administrative and some who don't. I've been with you guys for years. I don't see you as being ones who would delegate it to staff. I was careful in what I said. I said, it's your call. But I do know that my other jurisdictions, the law is Title IX. And that's why you have a Planning and Zoning Commission to do just this. And there's this precise rules concerning the notice they give, and the public has the right. And Luke made a good point. It doesn't invite a spat between the applicant and the constituents. It has to go through Robert's rules so that the commission can decide it. I agree with Councilmember Augerton. Councilmember McGuire. I can see why the commission chair did what he did. He was of the view this is administrative, therefore we shouldn't take any input. And I can remember when this happened, the vice mayor asked me, and I said, the reason input might be a good idea is to inform you as you're measuring whether or not they've met the objective criteria. And that actually has a strong democratic component. But it's leavened by the point that the Councilmember that Ernie talked about, is the more you sort of suggest to the public they have the right to reject an objective standard, the more you invite litigation. And I know the ones you're talking about, because I was the risk pool. We paid $2 million and for you guys, because you tried to impose something that should have been administrative. This has been an encouraging conversation. What I'm hearing is you understand the need for public comment. I think your staff was, recommending it should be administrative. You have the right to say no. I think to have a third element it is unique. And I was honest when I told you, of my 9 or 8, you are the most unique. And if anybody were to do it, you'd be the ones. But it does create cost. It does create the tension between having to tell the public what the standards are. One benefit of having the staff do it is they're the bad guys. You create the standards legislatively, you create the objective criteria, they measure it, and they tell the community it's not you. The community says to you then, change the rules. That's how this could be done. But tonight what I'm hearing is you may go with option B. Option B will invite discussion, but it won't be discussion between the applicant and the constituents. The discussion will be leavened by Robert's rules, but much like the mayor does here. And it'll force the discussion to go through the chair if you decide to go with option B.
Okay, the last comment, we may disagree on, we may have been on opposite sides on appointing the particular commission, and that's the democratic process, but I just want to say that the people on the planning commission put in a tremendous amount of time, effort, and energy, volunteers, as many of us in this room are, and I have respect and support for the chair, and as all the commissioners, I think we've got a great commission myself. So I just don't want to leave the meeting here without recognizing that we have differences of opinion on that, and those that I want to speak up to express my support. So
We have a motion for option
so
B.
let's we have a motion then on the table, and all of the comments have been here, and the word will is struck, and the word shall for option B.
Shall allow.
Shall allow.
Shall be
allow.
allowed.
And subsection A, it's line 6. Subsection A shall allow public comment.
Okay.
You want me to read the whole thing?
Can you?
Mayor,
Yeah.
Mayor, actually, if I may, because and on page 278 of your packet is the actual text from chapter 12. Number 7 would be amended. It's in blue line here. It says public comment will be allowed. Strike the
Shall.
will and put in shall would be the substitute that would come back to you for second reading if
Right.
this were adopted.
But the motion still has to say, instead of by allowing, it would say shall allow.
Right.
Right. So let me go ahead and read it. Motion to approve first reading of ordinance 02024-03, an ordinance of the mayor and the council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, amending the town of Cave Creek zoning ordinance, chapter 12, entitled Site Plan, section 12.2, entitled Procedures, subsection A, shall allow public comment for site plan cases, establishing an effective date and providing for repeal and severability.
Second.
Excellent.
Any further comment?
I think we're all talked out.
Yep.
Just
Shall I try-
lastly, I think we need to reiterate that we're going to need to communicate very well with the people in the audience, what they're allowed, what the whole point is of this exercise, and what we can and we cannot do with their words.
Shall I try?
If this passes, we're missing the opportunity to streamline and make smaller government.
Well, we can still do that, but at least we
Yeah,
get,
let's go.
we
one step
stop
at
the
a time.
bleeding, maybe, is a way to think of it.
You still need a roll call.
Yeah, let's have a roll call then.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Aye.
Councilmember Agarton,
Aye.
Councilmember Bunch,
No,
Councilmember Alcama,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Royer,
Yes.
Mayor Morris.
Aye. Motion passes 6-1. And we're on to.
first time.
And we're on to number 4, council discussion acceptance of a deed of gift from Scott Wells for a non-motorized trail easement on APM 216-14-006 located at 7030 East Lone Mountain Road, Cave Creek, Arizona, presented by Development Services Director.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
before we start, I won't, but I'd like to make a motion to table this into another meeting. We've got the committee, the Trails Committee appointed and about to begin work. And we're going to be hopefully getting a map of current dedications in the community. And this is the one we talked about at a meeting a couple of times back, where it looks routine, but it empties into a wash. Although, let me ask a question, I guess, but why would we do this before the Trails Committee?
Well,
has its
it's
meeting?
not a part of their assignment. They have one very narrow assignment, and that, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's Morningstar.
Well, it's to look at Morningstar and then other alternatives to Morningstar.
This is,
No, I
5
know.
miles
I'm
from-
just
from
giving you your
Morningstar.
answer that you asked.
I'd like to get the business done tonight if we can. So, can we answer those questions?
Mayor, so this was continued from February 20th agenda, I believe. It was on the consent agenda. The council pulled it after a series of questions. Direction was given to staff to provide a map. If you, on page 286 of your packet, 362, we've got the map of adjacent dedications that tie into this one. The subject property is 7030 East Lone Mountain. Really, this was dedicated back in 2006. Unfortunately, the trail easement itself was the west 10 feet of the property line. The trail itself falls outside of that. So this is just a restatement of an already dedicated easement. And it does connect to adjacent properties on either side of it. We actually contacted the property owner to see if they would be available tonight to answer any questions. They were under the impression that this was already done. And the surveyor is here to you're right, that slightly a step above a developer. The Scourge.
You know each other.
So this is really in its essence a housekeeping item. It's not a new trail easement. It's not a new trail. There's nothing involved budgetarily moving forward. This is just taking where the easement describes the trail should be and putting it where the trail is.
Can I just ask a question?
You can, or you can make a motion. You can make a motion.
I didn't
Yeah.
want to do that. So my only question is this a dedicated trail? And
It is not.
The piece connecting?
No, the wash is currently not dedicated.
Well, at last meeting, we had a question just about if the trail dedication is accepted by the town. What happens from that point onward?
It's already been accepted by the town. This is just
Okay,
moving
well,
it to where the trail is. The
What
trail is
is,
there.
what do people do when they come to the end of the easement and they approach this wash?
The
The
trail,
trail doesn't continue past that point, is that correct?
it continues past this property.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yes.
I had a
Absolutely.
problem last time, as you'll recall, with the map on the wall. Is this all dedicated?
Please go to this page. Like I said,
Right, but where does this connect into? Which is right here.
This is the subject property. This is the trail.
Okay, where does this go to there?
That's where it ends.
Okay, is this dedicated? I'm sorry to be belated this. I'm trying to figure out if the wash is dedicated.
No.
Because if it's not, it's a dead end trail.
Currently, yes, it is.
Depending on which way you're going.
It is not a legally dedicated
But not
trail.
the other way.
So it's connecting to a wash, which is not part of the public trail system in the community. And we're adding this last little piece right here.
It's already there.
Before I come, yeah, yes, I understand that.
Correct.
All right, I'll let it go, but you see the point? This is not, we haven't communicated anymore since the last meeting this issue was brought up. We're taking a public dedication and we're continuing it up to other people's private property into a wash, which is not publicly dedicated. If that seems reasonable to others here, then I definitely will stand down.
Can
But we
the,
haven't solved anything.
Can I say something?
sure, go ahead. You came,
Please,
to listen to all the other
Let
stuff.
me in for just a second. Jim Loftus, Mayor and council members. This all came up because of me. So, I was doing a site plan back in October of 23. And I've noticed that the warranty deed was incorrect because it actually accepted out the actual, easement. So it actually, as if the town owns that property. So when we did our deed, it accepted out the easement, which means the town owns that strip. So I was just trying to clean it up as my duty just to the owner, because it was not part of his property anymore. So when that first deed was created, they were trying to make it an easement, and the actual deeded the land over to that entity. I'm sorry, kind of explained that to Bambi, and I think I explained that to you. So that's the main reason why this is even
Does the
done.
owner want this done to clean up his property?
Well, no, because there's a strip going through the owner's property that was that the town owned. I mean, just by fee. So we were just trying to, but I think it was an accident when it happened. I don't think that was the intention when the deed was created. It should have been just an easement. Because we do these all the time. So that's what I was trying to,
So-
basically just clean up.
So Jim, wouldn't we have to abandon that piece of property?
Correct.
So why don't we put abandon the previous piece of property in with this?
Was it in the legal?
You're abandoning an easement, you're not abandoning.
You're abandoning the right, you're
You
abandoning, you're
need to abandon the property that we took.
correct.
So it needs to change to do that.
Isn't that what you're doing?
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're doing.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly what you're doing.
Page 281, the fourth word where. Oh, third word. Fourth.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Luke, don't we have other washes that end? Yeah, other trails that just end and people turn around and go back the other way? Or, I mean, this
Vice
is the
Mayor, that's
only
correct.
dead end trail we have throughout town, is it?
No, it is not.
So let me ask a question to council. So it says release of the 2006 easement. Does that that gives the deed back to the owner, correct?
It transfers the town's interest in what is an incorrectly described easement back to the owner. And the owner then grants you a new easement to align with the existing trail that you've already constructed. All we're doing is matching what's on the earth with an easement that you now will hold, and they abandoned the easement that was formerly there that was incorrect. I'm not, when you say fee, it's not fee, it's an easement. That's
Okay.
all. It's not a fee. So if you look on page 281, this has the effect of causing the existing trail that exists on the ground today to match an easement so that they're aligned. Right now, you have an easement that's different from the trail, and that's what you
Well-
say goes through the owner.
That's not what I heard
That's-
Jim Loftus say. We
Right.
own that piece of property. We need to give it
You have
back.
an easement. You've been granted an easement.
No, on the deed, it says we own it.
Yeah, this is
It's
bad.
public easement.
This is their deed. And that
Who's they? Who's they?
Wells, the Wells deed,
Okay.
and it accepts out this land that was conveyed by that easement. So
You just said conveyed by that easement.
no, I get that, but
It's not a
but
fee.
for me as a surveyor though, accept out.
Well, we're trying to fix it.
We're trying to fix it,
by
correct.
Yeah,
causing
yeah.
The trail that exists now to be accepted out.
Yes, we are trying to do that too. We're trying to do a couple things.
It's not a new easement. It's just correcting a problem that
it's a
was there.
correction.
It's win-win.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a correction.
And it's not a new easement.
No.
Let's call for the question.
Okay, yeah, let's call the question. And we can vote, and if it doesn't pass, then it doesn't pass.
I'll make the motion.
You got public comment on
Yep.
this?
Oh.
Public comment. Cynthia, did you want to comment?
I didn't turn in a slip,
No.
but I've ridden this trail for 40 years.
Oh.
So I know exactly the issue you're talking about. The past owners of the property always have welcomed horseback riders. Yes, it does empty into the wash where there's no specific easement, but neighbors again welcome horseback riders. There are areas in and around our private roads, 70th Street, which are not dedicated to the town, but again, horseback riders use them. So there's a neighborly component to correct use of easements throughout the town. And that's been the history of the town. When people put up a no trespass sign because they're new to the area, or maybe they just don't like horses, riders respect that. They create a new trail. A lot of these trails were game trails. That's why they're called wildcat trails. They were just game trails, coyotes, javelina, whatever deer, and riders pick up on them and explore. So it's part of Cave Creek's history. And certainly I think we should respect the private property owners and get the easement correct on the record so that going forward with purchase and sale of properties, it's no longer an issue. Thank you.
Okay, we've had public comment. I'll make the motion. Motion to accept the deed of gift from Scott Wells for a non-motorized trail easement on APN 216-14-006 located at 7030 East Lone Mountain Road, Cave Creek, Arizona.
Second.
I'm in favor of it.
Now, this is how our trail system gets built. I mean, we're going back and fixing one, but if we're brand new, we do it one parcel at a time, and eventually they connect up. When new people move or people or whatever, they give us the easement. So this is not anything. I'm glad to go back and fix one that we made a mistake in 2006 because I must have voted for it then.
Other comments from council?
Tom too.
Okay,
McGuire.
shall we try a voice vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-2. Okay. So we are
Mayor,
on.
just one comment as we leave this one, and I'll hurry. And that is, we just witnessed a voice from the community talk to us about an issue that's really important. And it made a difference.
Absolutely.
Cynthia?
Cynthia,
Well, she's with us. She's planning commissioner.
she's also the voice, she's the voice we need to listen to.
We're cutting her a check later.
Thank you, Cynthia. Council discussion and approval of a construction contract to Larson Excavating to install a new 6-inch water line on Cahuena. Is that close? Place between Sunset Trail and Arbuscula Drive for an amount up to $217,571.
Evening, Mayor and Council. This is a project, we have a program in our capital improvement budget for the Cape Creek Water, both Cape Creek Water and Desert Hills Waters to improve the water system. So in this case, there's an existing 2-inch line on this stretch of road that actually has 10 residents tied off. It's actually a dead end 2-inch line at this point. It's actually not tied in at the western side. So it's something that since I've been here, I've known about it and something we actually want to get out of the system. So now that Nick Larson was able to join the town as the deputy director, I actually tasked Nick with getting this project done. We're towards the end of this fiscal year. This is the project that we set aside the money for, the $150,000 that was in the CIP. We reached out, once the design was done, we reached out to 4 firms to get bids on this. We didn't publicly advertise it. By state statute, we could actually reach out to firms because of the value of the contract and not do that. We're a little, we wish we would have gotten more competitiveness, but we actually do believe that, and that's why we're moving forward with the bid that we did receive from Larson Excavation, which was the only one that received an actual financial bid, we do believe is actually acceptable for the amount of work involved. Next slide, Brian. So what we're doing is we're replacing, again, a galvanized 2-inch line. And if you've been in my office, you're sitting behind the desk behind me on top of my filing cabinet. So I was going to bring it in tonight, but there's a section of this pipe is actually in my office. We've had so many breaks on it over the years since I've been here. It was installed in 1962. It's the records that we can see. And there's, again, to 10 highlighted properties you can see actually are fed from this line directly. So we're looking to add the 6-inch line that would link the system together, allow us to get rid of the 6-inch line, add a fire hydrant to the area, and it helps to loop the water system. So why do we think the bid's acceptable? It's just we're about 850 feet of pipeline that we have to install. We actually have, of the 10 water services, 6 of them are what we call long side services, where they actually cross the width of the street. So we have to actually do slurry backfill on those. And then the typical standard for Cave Creek when we actually do a transverse crossing is we're supposed to do the width of the trench, which is usually 2 feet, and 5 feet on either side. So we'd have 6 locations where we'd have a 12-foot pavement patch on this. We've actually worked with Halmer, and he's agreed to allow us to do more of a typical what's called a T-top, lesser extension of that, but we're actually, at the end of the day, we're actually going to do a slurry seal over the entire road also. So it'd be an improvement to the roadway out there, as well as a substantial improvement for the customers. And again, when we looked at the bids that we did receive, or the one bid that we did receive, we do think it is acceptable in response. That's why we're coming forward. We're not looking to re-advertise this project. We'd like to do it within this year's capital year, because that's actually what we have funding set aside for. Next year, the program monies is actually set aside for a coordination project with the Tally Ho and Tandem project. We realized in the last couple of months, we actually found there's a section of 2-inch water line on Tandem that needs to be replaced. So we're coordinating with Hal Marin on that project. So as he bids that project, that's where our monies will go next year. So either if we don't do it this year, we'll have to put the money back in fund balance, and then we can rebudget for it the following year. But I'd like council's approval to move forward with this project. Within the bid, which was $207,000, we're asking just to make sure we can complete this work, is a 5% contingency, just a little bit of money set aside so that we can make sure in case something does happen, we can complete this project. So talking with Larson Excavations, they believe they've committed that they can get this done for before the end of our fiscal year, June 30th. So with that, I can answer any questions council may have.
I don't know if you speak Apache, and I assume that's where these names came from, but could you please pronounce for us both of those names? I'm uncomfortable being up here as a council member, and I can't even know how to say the names of my streets.
Well, no Sunset.
But how about
Like
the
Kiwana? Kiwana is how it is.
and the other one is
Abaskua? Sorry. You're asking the wrong name, a wrong person to do a pronunciation.
I just lost my seat.
Other questions? Okay, there is public comment on this.
No input received, Mayor.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion here.
I'll do it.
All right.
Finally, something positive from you tonight.
Don't she?
Motion to approve a construction contract to Larson Excavating to install a new 6-inch water line on Kiwana Place between Sunset Trail and Arbuscula Drive for an amount up to $217,571.
Second.
Okay, you had the comment.
I like the fact that it does the looping, and I've seen the pipe that's in his office. It's only got about 1/2 inch and a 2-inch pipe, about 1/2 inch inside the rust. So this is definitely going to make some people happy in that neighborhood.
And while Larson was the only bidder, I'm happy that it's them because they're a local contractor.
Yeah, I think they have a history in the community.
Just a little.
Good stuff.
Other comments? Okay, there is public comment. Did I ask that already?
No, yeah. with
No input.
financial.
No
That's
input.
financial.
Okay, we'll have a voice vote then.
No,
We'll have a roll call.
Right.
Thank you, Ernie.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Aye.
Councilmember Augerton.
Aye.
Councilmember Bunch,
yes.
Councilmember Elkama,
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Royer,
Yes.
Mayor Morris.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. We're on to the last item, which is the council discussion approval use of a cooperative purchase agreement for Maricopa County contract serial number 200125-C traffic signal poles and components with Solar Traffic Controls LLC for an amount up to $56,768 presented by the town engineer.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will try and make this quick. This is based on our pedestrian safety study, the 3 crossings, the rapid flashing beacons at the 3 crosswalks. And we are ordering these. They're solar powered. They will also, when somebody, hopefully the dark skies people won't kill me, but when somebody pushes the button, a street light will actually light up the crosswalk and let people have a fighting chance to get across Cape Creek Road. And then when they're across, it will go out. And so we'll have a rapid flashing beacon and we will have a traffic signal above or traffic light, excuse me, a street light above the crosswalk.
As long as you have a shade on top, pushing the light downward, you are dark sky compliant.
And they do. They have a shade that meets the dark skies. So we are, I recommend approval, and if you have any questions.
Question from council.
Just a quick question. Any possibility you would consider doing one installation and looking for a reaction before you do all of them? In terms of, the effect on the community and the commercial corridor? I mean, it's, very mag-like, very downtown Phoenix, near the freeway ramp-like. And I guess we have to have something, but is this the best we can do? It has no small western town charm. And I just wonder if you want to do a trial balloon of one of them.
The issue that we have is the three locations that were chosen were one on the west end, one on the east end, and one over by by the Kiwanis Marketplace in the center. And it was to, we're not doing every crosswalk, we're doing the three. Again, because those were areas where the pedestrian safety was deemed most necessary. And it comes down to a question of pedestrian safety, which I know that for about the last 3 or 4 years before we had the pedestrian safety studies done, we were looking at maybe having a stack of flags on each end where somebody could pass the flag back and forth so that they had a chance to, I mean, it was a good idea, but it was something that we looked at something that would be a little bit more technologically recognized. And so I would prefer to follow the governance of, or the recommendations from the MAG pedestrian safety studies and put in those 3 flashing beacons, and then we can decide how well they're working. But I think we need to have the full application of them to see how they affect us.
Can you slip in a traffic light there for schoolhouse as well?
It's not on the agenda. It's not on the agenda.
Just kidding.
Strike that from the record.
There is public comment.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Darren.
How, you said a flashing light, is it fast or is it slow flashing?
It's a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, and I'm not sure how fast they flash, but they are at a set pace to direct the attention. I believe they're a fairly rapid flashing beacon.
Are we concerned that if Councilman Rhodes is bringing his horse trailer through there at nighttime and somebody pushes that button, that the strobing will cause his horse in the trailer to have an epileptic seizure? Oh, never mind. He buttes them. Never mind.
Okay. Other questions, real questions. Public comment?
No input for this item, Mayor.
Okay, we're looking for a motion. I will make it. Motion to approve the use of cooperative purchase agreement for Maricopa County contract serial number 200125-C traffic signal poles and components with Solar Traffic Controls LLC for an amount up to $56,768.
Second.
I'm in favor of, we have a traffic safety study that says we got a problem and this is a solution. So even if we did find somebody who didn't like them, I'd still put it in because we, public safety is at risk. So
I'd like you to come back to us in 3 years and tell us how many people we didn't kill.
who had the second?
I did.
Okay, that was your second. Okay. Tom, do you want to join?
No, but if we could get a flashing traffic light in the future, that would be great. Thank you.
Anybody else? This is financial.
Councilmember Agerton,
Aye.
Councilmember Bunch,
Yes.
Councilmember Okama,
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire.
Yes.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Royer,
Yes.
Mayor Morris.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0 with no further business. We are adjourned.